Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk with Parul. Another episode, another conversation that really needs to happen. And this one has to do with our children. We thought on the occasion of Children's Day, let's take up an agenda that's really important as far as they are concerned. All about education, of course. And I think right now, in today's day and age, especially given the pandemic and the changes that are going to happen to life as we know it, Robert Fulham probably had it right when he said, "All I need to know, I learned in kindergarten." What we need to know, what we learn, how we apply to our life couldn't be of more importance today. But how ready is our education system to deal with these changes and prepare our students for tomorrow? We asked some high school students and those who have recently started undergrad studies about what they felt were the biggest drawbacks of our education system. What was really unfortunate was that what they felt was exactly what you and I must have felt when we were in school, and likewise for so many generations in between. So, is it enough to put the entire onus of learning on the education system, on policymakers, on our teachers? What can we as parents do to support learning as opposed to studying? Let's ask inspirational orator, author, storyteller, leadership and mentoring coach Jerry Almeida for some answers and for his roadmap that has already benefited thousands of parents and teachers in several schools and institutions around the world.
So Namaste
Jerry,
Parul.
welcome. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Yes,
It's
thank
such
you.
a pleasure to have you here. We've been wanting to do this for a while. So I'm just going to just check if we already have, we're going live on Facebook. Yes, we are.
All
Great.
right. Yes.
Just a little bit of tech check that we needed to do because I couldn't see the notification. But
Right.
yes, we have an audience of parents watching us.
Right.
And I'm sure all the questions that I raise right now and, very briefly is probably top of mind for all of us right now.
Right.
But let me start with something a little more basic, that when we're looking at schooling, I think as parents, somewhere down the line, we are looking at it with a slightly wrong lens. Maybe the perspective is a little wrong. When we think of good schooling, what
Right.
comes to mind is good infrastructure,
Right.
sports facilities, lab infrastructure, computer labs, etc. Everything should be computerized and digitalized. It should be air conditioned. So somewhere, that whole emphasis is on infrastructure rather than anything else. So let's hear from you about that. Are we making the wrong decisions right from step one when we are looking for a school at the kindergarten or even at the preschool level?
Right. So at the outset, let me thank you and Vishal and Mom's Presso for inviting me, and for all the people who are watching. Thank you for watching, and I hope I can add some value to all of you. So, this is something which I wrote. Uh, I actually spoke about this in a education forum where there were several parents, teachers, industry leaders, school owners, and having worked with the entire spectrum, right from school owners to principals to directors of schools to the management and the faculty of schools and the students, I've seen over time that there is a pattern where parents focus on infrastructure, and infrastructure is important, no doubt. I'm not saying it is not important, but what we don't really focus on, and what we don't check on, is what is the pedagogy, what is the andragogy, what is the education methodology. Is it purely rote studying and bragging about percentages for the schools and for the parents? Or is it really about internalizing the learning where children are made to think, right? And to quote what my dear friend and fellow journalist, fellow writer, P. Sainath says, he says, when people say they are highly educated, what they mean is that they're expensively educated, because
Right.
they went to
Right.
an expensive school and an expensive college. But that's where the buck stops. So while we like bragging, and most of the education for most parents, unfortunately, has been reduced to bragging rights, that my son or my daughter goes to so and so college. And we don't really check as to are they really learning, because learning and studying are two different things. Most schools, most colleges, not all but most, focus on rote studying, rote memory, they will coach you to get a high percentage and and ensure that you get a good career option. And like I always say, the education system and parents end up making most of us into career mules and
Mules.
consumers,
That's right.
right? We are not being taught how to become contributors. We are not being taught how to become change champions. We are not being taught how to become concerned citizens. And I think that is the overall learning which has to be encompassed in the entire education system. And I think the new education policy, the NEP, which they're talking about in
Yes.
India, is going to focus on that. But that said, I mean, as a country, while we create a great vision and we all also come up with a great strategy, to quote Peter Drucker, culture eats strategy for breakfast. So it's not just about creating a great strategy and a great vision. It's about first
Yeah.
trying to kind of address the culture that we live in, right? Because as a culture, we're not a rat race anymore in India. We are
Right. Yeah.
1.3 billion Indians fighting each other. So it's a germ race. So if you're not going to change that culture where a parent only thinks that education means a career, comfort, and a good lifestyle, then the strategy won't work, right? So while a lot of educators want to focus on learning and what has been now recognized as the most essential skill of the future, which is learning to learn,
Learning to
they
learn.
say that the
Yeah.
parents are not ready to listen, right? So what is the basic difference between rote studying or studying and learning to learn? Rote studying is where you mug or you
Yeah.
go for a coaching class, and you have all the coaching classes, whether they are the career launchers of the world or the Baijus of the world, which will coach you and spoon feed you. But that spoon feeding which is done for you because you can kind of then go and sit for an examination and get a high percentage, has the child really learned?
No.
And I simply test this in an audience of educators and parents and students by asking them, how many of you know your fundamental rights and fundamental duties of India? None of them know. In a
It,
room of 1,000 people,
yeah.
four to five hands will go up, and I see there it is. You studied, but you didn't learn. You didn't
No.
internalize the learning.
Because we were asked to study and learn it up for an exam in class 6, or maybe even earlier, I don't know, class 6 or 7, when you do that physics chapter, which is really, it just comes across as boring because you're just
Yeah,
asked to mug it up.
yeah.
So it never stays with you.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm saying it's a whole system and a whole culture overhaul which is
Sure, sure.
required, because and this has huge social ramifications, right? Because a society which cannot think for itself can always be
Right.
manipulated, right?
Yeah.
So you may be educated, but you're not learned and you're not thinking for yourself, because what the education system and the parents have done to you is dumbed you down by putting you into a process, right? So we are basically programmed machines, process driven machines, and that's exactly what the corporate culture wants, process driven people, right? That's exactly what democracies want, so that they can
Right.
manipulate you to think that they are the best people to vote for. So I think this is this has a huge socio-economic
Impact.
impact,
Right.
and I don't think people understand this because we are so busy with the 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 and living by the punch card and the few lunches and
Right. Right.
dinners that we do not see beyond.
But the interesting part there, Jerry, is that even the corporate world is demanding that their employees think outside the box. They want new solutions because the world is changing. The old heads, they don't know how to deal with it either. So they
Right,
want the new blood to come up with ideas. But how? If
right.
you've been put through that particular machine, and you know exactly what you've been talking about, you've been made into a career mule. How can
Absolutely.
even those people suddenly overnight start to think outside the box or come up with innovations?
And that's why I use the simple line, when I'm doing leadership talks. I say great parents make great leaders. And that's why, over the years, many people who I have trained and coached, they say, when are you starting your parenting classes? And that's what motivated me to write those few parenting lessons in the book,
Right,
the
right.
Karmakari Kid Power book, which was launched a little before the lockdown. And we got very good response to that, because parents are understanding what we are saying, because we brought the learning to life with real anecdotes of people I have coached, like a banker who wanted his son to become a banker like him, and his son wanted to become a chef. And he told me, knock some sense into that foolish fellow's head. And I'm trying, and I said, I'm trying to figure out whose head I have to really knock sense into, right?
Yeah.
So he's the banker, he's the CEO of an investment bank. So he thinks that's the best thing to be. But the world is changing. And I had to finally tell him that, one day bankers won't be required because bankers will be redundant. AI will take over because all banking can be
Yes.
done by AI. It's a process driven thing, right? But I said chefs will never be redundant because it's
Never
a
be redundant.
right. So and today I had to actually tell him that Gordon Ramsay can hire you as his accountant.
Yes, yes,
Gordon
absolutely.
Ramsay's net worth at that time was $600 million. I'm talking about 2017 December, when I had this conversation with the gentleman from Bombay, who's also a dear friend now because I've coached him for many years. And I said, Gordon Ramsay can hire you as his accountant because his net worth today is 4,000 crores. What are you worth? 40 crores, 50 crores, right?
Right.
And as we speak now at the end of 2020, Gordon Ramsay is worth 1,000 crores, right?
So there you
So
go.
sorry, he's worth
We,
6,000 crores,
wow.
a thousand, a billion US dollars, right? So that's where we are. And I think we're not thinking about how can we make children think better and think bigger rather than putting them into a box and saying that this is what you will do.
This
And
is,
like you said, it's a vicious cycle because
yeah,
the
yeah,
parents like me and you have been trained that way.
sure,
So we are
absolutely.
passing on the same blind beliefs, the same limited thinking, the same limitations onto our kids. We should not do that.
I'm going to ask you for more specific, like a roadmap or a charter for parents as to what we can do. But
Right,
before that, I'd just like to play this video. We spoke with a few students, and we just asked them questions
right,
about what is wrong with the system that you are going through, and
right,
also those who have just joined college, because for them it's absolutely fresh. They've come out of a system of 14 years and they've gone into a completely new system.
right,
And what is it? What are the challenges that they are facing? So
right.
let's see what they have to say.
Don't have the sound.
For our own learning purpose. I'll just start that again.
Yeah, sure.
I feel one of the drawbacks, apart from rote learning, is the fact that everything we're taught during the school year is just for the exam at the end of the school year. Nothing is for our own learning purpose. There is no basic understanding of any of the concepts that you have learned. It's not, it's definitely not about the quality of what you have learned. Why is E equal to MC square? I still don't know. Every piece of information that we're given has a marking scheme with it. For example, if you write this point, you're going to get 1 mark. If you miss it, you will lose your marks for that answer. The same applies to keywords as well, because a student can understand the concept, you can have it in your head, but you miss out on those 1 or 2 keywords that you need for the answer, and you have suddenly lost all your marks. Creative subjects like English allow you to explore, things that aren't formatted or systematic. It's a free-flowing, fluid subject. And sadly, I'm more often than not caught memorizing answers, which sounds quite bizarre because English is a subject where I get to explore other areas of my vocabulary, and I'm not being able to because of these keywords that limit me. And I've seen ICSE when I would write creative essays, I would write introduction, stanza, conclusion. When I was in school, I felt like I had to follow this strict ladder, and I couldn't change things around. But now I feel like if I don't change things around, my paper will never exceed, and it won't make the impact that I want to make on my audience.
We are not exposed to information about the current affairs of the world that we live in. In school, we really live in a safe bubble, and so a lot of students are not prepared for the real world which we have to face after school. There are way too many examinations. I'm currently in the 12th grade, and I have a total of 4 examinations that I have to give before I give my board. So that's a total of 5 examinations during one academic year. Nothing changed. So somebody who is 15 years and probably studied what I studied in class 12, and not just the year, but also the questions in the exams also. If you look at like the past year papers, which is what we used to study for our exams, you'll see that a lot of the questions are really alternate year, right? So essentially, you can predict what will come in your paper. So the engagement with what you are learning in text never extends beyond just your textbook and your teacher. So you will never want to learn anything outside of that because you know you will not be asked questions on. Another problem is the fact that school doesn't really teach us life skills which we would use in our daily lives in the future, such as filing taxes. The last major problem I see with our education system is the lack of sex education. I think most students are aware of the cases of sexual harassment throughout their country, and I believe that schools should impart some form of sexual education so as to help their students and the society that they live in. In 8th grade, I like the majority to know what I want to be in the future. While taking psychology, I had to forego math. And because of that choice that I had made in 8th grade, I cannot apply to any colleges for BCom honors in Delhi University. Okay, in 8th grade at age 13, we have made a wrong decision. The system doesn't allow us flexibility to change our course.
So there you go. Loads of feedback, and there's so many points which came out. There are many more points.
And you would see that we've already covered a lot of those in the.
Yes, absolutely.
So I mean, and that's the uncanny part of it, that that parents feel I'm more aligned with the kids than with them. And a lot of parents have now started reaching out to me to coach their kids, because like some of the kids were talking about the life skills, being prepared for transformation is missing. And I'm right now speaking to a set of parents from the US, whose son refuses to listen to them because something has gone wrong somewhere. And it's simply that we don't understand that they have their own minds to think.
Right.
And I think we should encourage them to think better, rather than saying I know what is good for you, because most of us as parents are so outdated.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean when I'm working with parents, they don't even know that there is a whole industry called gaming out there.
Right.
And if they know it, it's because Byju's and White Hat Junior has sold to them that we will teach your child coding and make them billionaires overnight. Hey, that's bunkum nonsense. And how can you teach a 7-year-old coding? Why are you stressing the kid with coding algorithms at the age of 7?
Brought that up on this very forum, in fact, that there's this whole pressure which is coming, unnecessary pressure.
And we actually fought tooth and nail for that by putting pressure on social media, where Facebook and Instagram didn't do anything to stop the ads. We finally had to kind of write letters to ASCI, the Advertising Standards Council of India, and they put a ban on those ads finally. But the bigger point is that these are educated parents from Gurgaon, from Bombay, from Bangalore, who were enrolling their 7-year-olds for coding classes so that they became billionaires like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates.
Get a life. And there are many children who are interested and probably very good at that. They have the kind of mindset for coding. By all means, just like we encourage a child who's showing any kind of skill in a sport, we encourage them by, maybe training them a little bit, giving them more exposure in that particular field. By all means, do that with children who are already inclined.
Absolutely, as long as it is fun while learning. But if you're putting that pressure that this is going to be your career option at the age of 7, it's like getting a child married. Married, right? We come from a culture where kids used to get married at the age of 7. But hey, it doesn't work like that.
It doesn't work like that. Absolutely.
I think there is this basic problem, which in my terms I always say we are too Westoxicated. And I have not.
Toxicated. I love that word.
Yeah, and this was a word coined by Ayatollah Khomeini, right?
I see.
Where he said, we have mindlessly, adopted the frivolous practices of the West, which I completely agree about. But I say we need to get Westoxified, which
Mhm.
basically means that how do we take the best practices of the West? The West also has best practices,
Of course.
but we have not adopted those. We've adopted their pop culture, we've adopted their cheerleaders, we have adopted their reality shows, Indian Idols, whatever, and all the soap operas and all that kind of nonsense, right? But we've not adopted the spirit of social service. We've not adopted the spirit of volunteering.
Yeah.
And research shows you that volunteering teaches the best life leadership and learning to learn lessons. There is a clear research to show this, done by HBR,
That
done
is,
by
in fact,
economists.
one of my questions, and I'd love for you to elaborate on
Yeah,
that.
I will. I'm just preempting this based on what the children were asking, because I want to answer them more than I want to answer the parents. And I was,
Sure.
I mean, I saw my own son in there, so
Right.
so it's basically what they're speaking about. Like, like why should sex be a taboo for them,
Yeah.
right? We come from
It's
the
a
land.
life lesson. These are
Absolutely.
life skills, right?
Yeah, we come from the land of Kama Sutra, right? And yet, because we are a society which will follow all kinds of superstitions about crackers being burst for Diwali, or black cats crossing our path, but we won't follow the good traditions and good culture that we have as a country called India, right? And that's why I say we need to get Westoxified. Now, what the West has done is they've taken all our best practices like yoga, seva, which is actually our cultural practice, and they've made it better. So you see kids who are 7 years old who will be volunteering on the streets of America or any place in Europe to raise funds for their favorite cause, while you see our 7-year-olds either learning coding, or worse, is that they're dancing in Indian Idol and reality shows on item numbers or on Honey Singh songs. What are you doing to your children? And these are educated parents, you know. So and there is clear research to show you that this is harming the mental and the emotional wellness of the children. When you put them in front of those judges, and they completely get demoralized when they lose their self-esteem. Their self-esteem takes such a big hit, which people are not realizing, you know. So I think that's why I said we need a whole culture and a whole system change.
I have one more video to play and to show you, in fact, and that is by the college student Noor, who was telling us about how things changed for her. And
Right.
I'm just going to play that because
The
I think that's
audio is a little unclear. I did get uh,
oh,
most of what they were saying, but the audio was a little
little unclear. So what I'll probably do is post it on the page later on so that
sure,
everybody can take a look at it.
sure.
Please do log on to the Let's Talk with Parul Facebook page. And if you're not a member, send us a request. We'll enroll you now. And you can look at all the videos over there. So here's Noor talking about how ill prepared she was when she reached college. I'm just going to share my screen for that.
Our style of teaching is such that we engage with our textbooks and our course material for the first time within our classroom, and not outside of it on our own. We are not asking questions, but we're actually just raising doubts in class. So I might ask some doubt I had while we were reading it in class, but I will never ask a question that, or even if I do, it's very rare that I'll ask a question which will open up this discussion, or which will open up a debate, and create this sort of like idea in someone else's head, which is something I struggled with in college, and I continue to struggle with in college, even now in my third semester, because I've never engaged with my text beyond just reading it. I don't know how to pick certain ideas and raise questions about it, or thoughtful discussions, or create this sort of opinion which I can back up with facts. Even research in ICSE and ISC are very limited because we never engage in research other than to make our board projects. We never did academic texts and followed through references and citations, which you really don't know how to write. So when you go to college, just don't go into it with because our entire first semester just goes adapting to this entirely different um, educational system. It becomes much more scarier, I think, when you have to learn your entire academic process.
So as
You
Noor
will
said,
you'll just have to repeat it for me because
okay, I will. Sorry. So then that means the audio was very unclear.
Yeah.
So what Noor is talking about is one, you're not taught how to read academic papers. So by the time you reach university
Right.
and you're asked to do, very critical and analytical reading,
Right.
you're asked to, follow citations and readings. You're not able to do that. It takes a whole semester to just catch up with those things. The second point which she brought out, which I thought was just very valid and very on point, is that as in the traditional boards, children are not encouraged to ask questions beyond
Right.
hearing doubts. So
Right.
you do not know how to create conversations,
Right.
how to create debates and discussions, how to bring together that. In fact, I'm just going to put down a little compilation of these very points,
Right.
and you'll be able to see that here.
Right.
Reaching
Right.
college unprepared.
Right.
I don't know how to write.
Right.
My critical, analytical,
Right.
writing skills are extremely, well, let's just say they're not on point. They're not the way that college students should be.
Right.
Academic rigor leaves no space for personality development or discovery.
Right.
Difficulty to actually learn in
Right.
college after years of memorizing, which means that you have to redo that entire academic process
Right.
as far as your setup is concerned.
Mhm.
Almost no experience or practice of public speaking.
Right.
Only the good get better.
Right.
So these are the points which a lot of students have brought up, and I think it's again, it's at the end of the day, if we're talking about getting students prepared for the future, we're not doing a very good job.
Right.
They're going to take another semester or two to
Right.
get used to a completely different academic process, which very well could have been incorporated in our academic system.
Right.
So that very fact of not being able to, not knowing how to ask questions,
Right.
create debates and discussions is alarming,
Right.
because ultimately that's a life skill and that's what we do all the time.
Right. It's one of the reasons I got very passionate about working with children is because they are the victims of the system, right? Uh, when I say the victims of the system is not just the education system. The system is also the parents. The system is also the family. The system is also the peer pressure to perform. The system is also the so-called concept of success, which is about fame, fortune, name, glory, and success at any cost, without really understanding what success means. So I'm going to take your permission. I'm going to pull up some slides here.
Yes.
And what Noor said is bang on, because what the modern education system and parents, especially in our geography, in our culture, train us to do is only to use our left brain. Okay, the left brain and the right brain concept. The left brain
Yes.
is the logical brain, the practical brain, the pragmatic brain, and it's very important. It uses the prefrontal cortex, which is logical, rational thinking. But the right brain concept has many more skills, which is about critical thinking, innovation, imagination, creativity, curiosity, and we are not fueling all those triggers of learning. Now, I'm first going to pull up the brochure that we have created for the Mojosh Inspirator Life Leadership and Learning to Learn skills. And I'm going to write to you when I wrote this entire paper where I told you about Sainath saying that, we are not highly educated, but expensively educated. And I go a step further and I say that we are not educated at all. We are merely degreed. Whether you come from the top IITs and IIMs or from the Ivy Leagues, people are merely degreed. They have a degree, they have a high percentage to get them a job, right? And that's why the world is so broken down today. One of the reasons to do the Mills program is because we said we have been unable to build a future for our youth. So it's time to build our youth to change the future, because at least maybe they can do it. Now, this is what Rihan Khan said. Rihan's the MD of a Fortune 500 company in India, in Asia, in fact, and a healthcare industry leader. He said, Jerry, thanks for sharing an outstanding note. Completely agree. I've been on the board of the leading boarding schools in the country, and after 3 years, left completely disillusioned. Don't think most schools care about learning. While career ladders aren't all bad, you would be surprised how many senior leaders I have met, many on my own teams, who can't write at an average level. And certainly, empathy and decency, if taught, will make a massive difference in the impact of businesses and organizations. Now, this is one industry leader who we've included in the brochure. I've spoken to many, and I'm like, somewhere there's also pressure from you because you only talk about competence. You don't talk about character. And especially in our geography, including in the US and the UK, character rooted learning is missing. It's mostly rote studying, which does not really build curiosity, creativity, critical thinking skills. At the same time, while schools invest in training their teachers, they don't train the teacher's mindset. They only train them how to teach. And I always tell teachers when I start with one simple line by my favorite teacher, who I think was the world's greatest teacher. And the humility that he had, that I cannot teach anyone anything, I can only make you think. This was said by Socrates, and that covers teaching, right? Which means that all parents, all teachers, forget industry leaders, etc., should learn mentoring skills, because mentoring is an art, craft, and a science. But whether it's in schools or colleges, or in fancy universities, in startups, in the investment circles, everybody loves calling them mentor and chief mentor without understanding the art,
Meaning.
craft, and science of mentoring. I've written a whole book on this, and I've been teaching mentoring in corporates for many years now. So I know what I'm talking about. And why is it a very essential parenting skill? Because again, as parents, don't tell them what to think. Teach them how to think bigger and better than what you could ever think.
So how do we
Right?
do that, Jerry? I mean, where do we start?
It's simple. It starts with trusting our kids. And you know that I'm going to pull up my slides now, and that's the reason we've embarked on this mission, where we are starting the Mojo Inspirator Life Leadership and Learning to Learn skills, because we've spoken to so many kids, and you listen to some of them who are speaking now, right? And we're calling it Life Leadership and Learning to Learn Success Summit, right? That success doesn't happen because you chase fame and glory. Success happens because, and we're bringing the story, the learning to life with real stories. And this is my Karma Kari Kid Power. And if you see the slug line that I wrote over here, at the back of the book, because we need to learn from children who are our future, to see, touch, and change the future for the better, right? Now, why do I say we have to learn from our children, right? There's a very old saying that the child is the father of the man, right? So I've unpacked that entire quote, and what did he really try to tell us through with that one simple line? Now we interpret it in different ways, but I have tried to interpret it by how we should learn from children rather than teaching them what to do.
Mhm.
And then I've taken Khalil Gibran's entire poem from his book, The Prophet, where people say, and now tell us about our children. And he says, your children come through you, but they do not belong to you. They're not an appendage of your body that you will control them. So first of all, we need to let go of control, right? And we need to trust that our children can do things on their own. But whether it's school or college, you will see that, right from class uh, this is what we are teaching. We're teaching that, you cannot just, Noor spoke about personality. You cannot build a robust personality without having a great character, right? And character rooted learning is because it's all about human values. It's exactly what we are talking about: empathy, right? Which is the other biggest essential skill of the future, besides learning to learn: empathy and emotional intelligence. And here's the big insight for all the parents. There's somebody on Facebook who's posted, how can all chefs earn as much as bankers? You'll be surprised. There are many chefs who are food entrepreneurs today, and they're millionaires,
Yes.
right? And a chef can never be replaced, because food can never be cooked by a robot or by artificial intelligence. You'll always need the human touch. And here's the big insight for you: jobs in the future which will be for human beings are only jobs which require emotional intelligence. And the modern education system does not teach you emotional intelligence. It does not teach you growth mindset. What does growth mindset simply mean? You don't teach children how to compete with other children. You teach children to compete with themselves, because champions compete with themselves, not with others. But because we are so competitive about our percentage and how we will make the
And
cut,
first आना है.
first Anna, we forget that growth mind. It's an entire study by Carol Dweck and several other neuroscientists, and people are not aware of this learning. So at one end, I hold the parents responsible for messing up kids, because kids are big victims of mental health issues and depression today because of parents and the modern education system, especially in our culture. At the other hand, I don't hold the parents responsible, because they truly don't know what is happening in the world.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why when we said that we are going to go into schools and colleges, we work with the holy trinity, as we call it, that the child is at the top, but right at the bottom, to ensure that the child is holistically developed, right, are the parents and the educators. Because if we are not working with them, we can't change it for the child, right? So that's the approach that we use when we go into schools and colleges. And we are rolling out a huge program now, first for the youth. We were to roll out the character rooted learning, mojo inspirator learning, as we call it, for the students in schools this year. We have almost 100 schools who have enrolled for the program. It's all about life skills.
Right.
It's purely about life skills, and we bring the life skills to life with real stories. Let's take the story of William Kamkwamba, right, the boy who harnessed the wind. I wrote about him in my book 2 years ago, when I finally completed my research and started writing the book, right? Netflix has made a movie on it. If you've not watched the movie, I would urge you to see it. A boy who's expelled from his school at the age of 14, whose parents don't have faith that this guy can make a windmill, goes ahead and makes a windmill purely by learning on YouTube. So, hey, don't listen to Chetan Bhagat and say that, don't spend time on the mobile phone. If they're learning something on YouTube, it's learning. So you have William Kamkwamba, who is one of our mascot mentors for the Mills program, who learned how to make that windmill purely by learning from the net, purely by doing his research. So that's the concept of learning to learn. How do I use my time to learn in any situation? I don't need to learn only from books. I can learn from anywhere. I can learn from any person. And then he makes a windmill out of the scrap material that he finds in scrapyards. True story, right? So our other mascot mentor is Dashrath Manji, the man who moved a mountain. Then these are all the stories that we write in our Karmakari books. And then I was compelled to write Karmakari Kid Power, because most of our children who go to fancy schools and expensive schools, they don't have that character, because we also have another trap called entitlement. And this is again built by the parents, that when you get a high percentage, you'll get a fancy job. So a kid passing out of a school, from an MBA school, thinks that, oh, I should be having a salary of at least 40 lakhs to start with. Entitlement issues.
Yeah.
Right. And I wrote this book about about children from the underserved communities. I said, don't feel that you're entitled to anything. You're not. Earn your place in the sun, because these are kids who have not gone to fancy schools, who have not gone to they're all kids from the Satya Bharti schools, right, which are government schools, which are now run by Satya Bharti. They're from very, very unserved backgrounds, 22 children, girls and boys, and most of them are doing big things to make a difference in our world today. And then we in the same book, we have parenting lessons, and it's all learning, which is about the 5 intelligences: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and moral intelligence, which many people have not covered till date, which is one of the biggest intelligence required to form character. Now, here's the big insight, Parul, that I want to share with you and with all our parents. It is not your talent or competence which takes you beyond or takes you places. We are completely mistaken when we only focus on competency, skills, and talent. Talent and competence is overrated. What really takes a child or anyone beyond is character. What does character mean? Discipline. I'm my own disciple. I don't need my parents to supervise me when I'm giving my board exams. Why should you be supervising them? Have you ever thought about it? Why do you need a person to supervise you when you're giving exams? Defies the purpose of education, which means we don't trust our students. Right. So like I said, it's a whole system overhaul. And then what is happening is schools and colleges in India, they just go and study some Finnish model or things which are happening in Scandinavian countries and try to come and come and try to implement it in India. Hey, it can't work. India is 1.3 billion people.
Yes.
you know.
Yeah.
So we need to redefine and recreate our entire education methodology, and and that's why I say, because we need to learn from our children. Let's learn from them. Like what you did, Parul, is absolutely right. Let's understand from them what is it that they truly require. Public speaking skills.
Yes.
I've seen people who've gone to the most premier schools and colleges cannot speak to save their lives. And because of which, even though they are very good at their job, they can't grow grow in their careers, right? And then they go and learn public speaking from some online people without really realizing that that's not the way to do public speaking, because it's all about subject matter.
Public speaking is really all about getting out there, and only a school at the very, very early level can do that. And as
Absolutely.
these children have said, that, unfortunately, in our schooling system, whichever the school, it's the good speakers who get selected and they become better, and the others just remain invisible.
Absolutely.
Which is what it's really sad, and I've been through it myself. I've been
Absolutely.
a victim of that, because in a smaller school I was given that encouragement, but in a larger school I was lost. So I know
Absolutely.
the difference that schooling also makes, and of course, what is going on at home is all the more important.
Absolutely. And I mean, schools like Sri Ram, and we are probably kind of fortunate to be there. uh, they look at that holistic development,
Yeah.
but many of the CBSE schools, they don't look at that. And the reason they say that they don't look at that is because, oh, we are governed by how the school management system works. Hey, go by that curriculum, but who stops you from imparting character rooted education to them?
Right.
You
But
cannot
I
blame
think
the
really
board for
what happens is, I mean, we've spoken over a period of time with so many educators, and they, especially at the senior school level, they are so overwhelmed by the system, by the structure, the demands of that board exam, the 4 exams, like Avni mentioned, that have to happen before the board exams, the marking in a certain way, that I think at some point of time, even the schools give up and say, okay, fine, listen, we have to do this. Let's just go ahead and do this. She also mentioned a very valid point, that when we were talking about life skills, I don't have that video here, but she mentioned something very, which stayed with me, that I asked them about, life skills. Where have you learned your life skills from? Zoravar mentioned YouTube and his parents. My daughter mentioned, life in general, places, what I see at home, chores, travel. Avni mentioned the shopkeeper who teaches you mental maths.
right.
And also, everything I know from my fourth standard teacher.
Right.
Till the fourth standard, whatever I learned, I remember clearly. The
Right.
rest of it has been specialization, which at times is boring, at times interesting, at times extremely forgettable. Noor mentioned, intercultural participation, especially in her college right now, being able to interact with
Right.
professors, assistants professors, students of various different semesters. So different ages, different backgrounds, different levels of academic qualifications coming together for debate and discussion. There
Right.
you go. Life skills galore. How much more does one need?
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that they're learning from the ordinary people. And I'm happy that you made me think about this, because this is something I wanted to share. Most parents give examples of successful sports people or celebrities without realizing that they are not heroes at all. And that's exactly what kind of inspired me to embark on this journey of writing the book of real heroes. Because I said they're following all the wrong idols. I call it idol worship, right? And we are a country which blindly believes and follows idols, right? I mean, imagine kids who are following a Salman Khan being human. Where is the human? What are we talking about, right? Or for that matter, somebody who's just a celebrity need not be a hero, right? They're only celebrities, right? Or just because they are big rich businessmen does not make them heroes. They're far from being, and we can see those stories. You can see the Vijay Malias of the world, and the bankers of the world all falling because of lack of moral and emotional intelligence.
Right, right.
And we are actually telling children to follow them. Can you imagine all the children and the youth who followed Lance Armstrong? How cheated and defeated they must be feeling today.
It is absolutely, it's a huge feeling of letdown when, someone
Absolutely,
follows.
right. And you'll be surprised, many more will fall, right? And therein lies the problem. And what research shows you is that when you tell stories of ordinary people who have gone for extraordinary and not just created empires or enterprise, but have created eternity, which is much bigger than creating an empire, right? Then, the ordinary man can identify with him. A child can identify with him. Like when I tell the story of Dashrath Manji, that a man moved a mountain while your parents teach you that faith moves mountains. And they're like, you serious? He moved a mountain? I'm like, yeah, seriously. I've held the hammer and chisel in my hand. So a man who was 5 feet 2 inches has actually moved a mountain, created a 18-kilometer long road, which is today called the Manji Pass. And they made a movie on him called Dashrath Manji, the Mountain Man, right? So I tell them, watch the movie, watch better movies also, besides just watching Happy New Year and whatever else you watch, right? So I think we need to also tell them that, the real heroes are the ones who are making a difference in the world. So whatever you do, you may do a job in the corporate sector, but you can still make a contribution. And I think that's what we need to teach our children, how to become change champions, how to become contributors and make positive contributions in whatever you choose to do. You may become a lawyer, but make a positive contribution. Don't just become a paper pusher because the corporate pays you well. Right? I was watching a brilliant movie last night called Dark Waters. I would recommend that you all watch it. It's one lawyer's fight against a company called DuPont, and how DuPont has poisoned us over years with Teflon. Right? So these are the things that kids should be made aware of, so that they can also make the right options, choose the right options where they want to work. Do you want to work with a company which is destroying planet and destroying nature for the people, or do you want to work with a company which is more caring and more humane? So I think the whole thing, it's like what Haim Jinot said, right? That we need to go beyond teaching children to be mathematicians and scientists, because I saw the same people committing evil atrocities in the Nazi camps. Haim Jinot is an educator who wrote about the teacher and child books and the parent and child books. And I think we should realize that, it's also very good and important, very essential and important to teach children to be better citizens, to teach children to be better human beings. And you have living examples now. While the grown-ups are cleaning their homes, right, it is Greta Thunberg who came out and tried to clean the world. And the grown-ups felt threatened by it, right? So who's the real leader, the grown-ups or the children? Let's think about it.
Absolutely
Right.
Right. We have some comments coming, and I think almost everybody agrees with the conversation that is happening here. Neeru Nagpal says, public speaking courses, people are minting money. Instead, it needs to be fostered since early years of student life. Absolutely, Neeru. Pooja Shetty is asking, how do we encourage kids for public speaking?
Right. So, I teach public speaking. I'm not yet started teaching kids in school, but I teach public speaking to corporate leaders and, entrepreneurs and so on. And what most public speaking courses, which I think she was talking about, whether they're online, and I won't name any of them, but I study them just to understand what I should not do, right? They all teach you about the razzmatazz and the style of public speaking, right? It's complete bunkum nonsense, right? They'll teach you how to rule the stage. And I tell them, don't rule the stage. Learn how to serve from the stage, because don't waste people's time by standing up there, right? Even if it's a free talk, because it's a TEDx talk, like everybody loves putting this TEDx speaker. And I'm like, will people pay to come and listen to you? They will only come to pay. They'll pay to come and listen to you because you're adding value to their life.
Your content, it has to
the content. And that's what we teach in public speaking, that your subject matter should be so rich that you can jive, you can dance with the subject. You don't need a teleprompter. You don't need slides. You can just swing. You can it's like dancing, ballroom dancing. You can lead the audience, right? Because you know your subject matter so well. Now what most people teach you is how to go with slides and talk from the slides. It's completely wrong, because you've not engaged with the audience. I see senior leaders who I train, and these are director level and president level people who don't get their presentations right. Because
the content itself is not right.
The content, because okay, to just give you a simple example, working with a large banking group, the chairperson, she gave me a brief. She said, you need to teach all these guys public speaking and presentation skills. And I'm like, these are all senior guys. And the only thing which was going to work for me is that I'd done a leadership program with them earlier. So I had some rapport with them. And it was on a weekend in the basement of the bank's premises in Bombay, right, which is on a Saturday and Sunday. So I said, this is completely suicide for me. I said they wouldn't want to learn, and rightly so. When I entered that office on on Saturday morning, they all looked at me like, I was the devil incarnate there, right? So I told them, let's see what you're doing in your presentation skills, because it shows in the research that you're losing out on a lot of deals because of your presentation skills. And I saw the first three presentations. The first 20 slides spoke about the virtue of the bank. So I asked them, who's the audience you're speaking to? Chairman, CEOs, CFOs. I said, the only reason you're standing in front of me is because I know the virtues of your bank. So why are you telling me that? I want to know, what will you do for me?
What's in it for me? Absolutely.
Yeah, and you just 10 minutes of my time you wasted by telling me we are the number one bank in the world. Who gives a damn? Tell me, how will you take me to the IPO?
I think what a lot of parents want to know, Jerry, is there is this huge fright, and perhaps with those that can be a topic which I know everybody will be interested in, and also it's to do with one not having the experience
Right.
of being out there and talking, which we've already discussed. A lot of things that schools can really work up on, but from the parents' point of view, how do I get rid of that fright? Because I've had it for the longest time, and took me 30 years to fight it. But for a young child for whom this fright has to be, it's one of the first fears that they need to learn how to fight.
Right.
What is the best way of doing that? As a parent, what can I do?
So it's a mindset change which is required, right? And I think it starts with understanding that our child will find her or his way and create a place for herself or himself under the sun. It starts with that simple thinking. So let's not put them in a box. Let's dissolve the box for them, because no matter how many books you read, no matter where your degree is from, all that education does is puts you in a box. At the same time, I don't agree with people like Gary Vee, who like to talk that schools and colleges are redundant. They're not. They can never be redundant.
You know,
You cannot learn from Google is data, it's information, it's not knowledge,
right,
right?
right,
Because in
absolutely.
schools you don't only learn from teachers and from educators, you learn from peers, you
And we
learn from
see
your
that.
seniors, you learn your emotional skills. And I would urge all the parents to watch a movie called The Book of Henry. And last year when we did the Education Change Champion Awards, I started my talk with a clip from the book where Henry is this very gifted kid, and the teacher says, explain to me, Henry, why are you not in a school which is meant for gifted kids like you? And he says, so that I don't feel entitled, and it's good for my socio-economic development. I'm sorry, socio-emotional development. Right. So I think we need to understand that, we need to holistically develop the child, not just develop their rote studying and rote memory, because that's absolutely useless in the long journey of life. That
Yeah.
is one. Second, I'll go back to my slide, is that is one of the reasons that we have created this entire concept called the Mojo Shelter Life Leadership and Learning to Learn Success Summit. And you will see that, it's our basic symbol is a matchstick. That fire is there in every child. And, all children are born great geniuses. It is us grown-ups who dumb them down, because we pass on our beliefs, we pass on our limitations, we pass on all the nonsense that we've been fed as kids onto them. So
Stories.
beware of the E3 trap. And the E3 entrapment, as I call it, I've covered this in my book extensively. The first trap, education. No matter where you get educated from, it's all limiting education. It puts you in the box. It does not open the box for you. So we as parents need to dissolve that box. It's just bookish knowledge. It does not work in the journey of life. I promise you that. I know it. And just to quote what Frederick Douglass said, he said that it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. I promise you, I know exactly what he's talking about. I work with people in the corporate sector, and we are all so broken that we are, some of us are like Humpty Dumpty. In the coaching circles, we call them uncoachable. They're just not ready to change and transform, right? So say, don't put people into that education trap, because all education, no matter which school they go to a public school, a government school, or the best of schools in Bombay or Bangalore or Gurgaon or the United States of America, it's all limiting. Your second trap is your experience trap. All of us, and neuroscience and psychological studies prove this, we are not just victims of our own experiences. We develop fears, we develop anxiety, we develop stress because the small part of the brain called the amygdala, which is our brain which stores all our emotions, which makes us fight, flight, or freeze, stores all that you say to your kids. So don't be discouraging towards your kids. Please don't uh, use any kind of discouraging language. It need not just be an abuse. Even a comparison with your other kid is damaging your kid, right? So use encouraging language and don't make them fall into that experience trap, because we are not just products of our own experiences, we are also products of the parents, the teachers, and societal experiences. And the third trap, entitlement trap. Your kids, none of us are entitled to anything. We're not entitled to fancy jobs. And because people don't get those fancy jobs, then they start whining and they develop what is called as the victim mindset in psychological studies. So be very careful. Don't make them feel entitled, where when they don't get something they start feeling victimized, because a victim mindset is a very dangerous mindset. Once you feel like you're a victim, then you start whining, complaining, whimpering all the time rather than taking charge of your lives. And you know what we've done, Parul, which were on the 26th of November, we are releasing the song. We've taken this old song called K Sara Sara.
Right, right.
I've loved the song always as for the melody and the tune, but what I've never liked about the song is the messaging. And
Is
I and I've always felt that the song's messaging is akin to what the education imparted by the modern education systems and parents.
Yeah.
It's it's futile, it's frivolous, it's fatalistic, right? Why do I say that? Why do I say it's futile? It does not teach you how to use your right brain. It does not teach you how to have a growth mindset, right? It is teaching you that you are a product of whatever happens to you, your experiences, your circumstances. No, not nonsense, right? Secondly, it's frivolous because what do you mean by will I be handsome? Will I be rich? Will I be pretty? Who gives a damn? How does that matter?
Yeah. Why should it matter?
Why should it matter? What about being pretty good citizens? What about being pretty good human beings? What about being pretty positive contributors? What about being pretty positive people who leave behind a legacy before they go?
Absolutely.
What about being pretty good environmentalists like a Greta Thunberg or Severin Suzuki, who spoke in 1992 in the UN Assembly at Brazil and Rio de Janeiro and told world leaders from 175 countries that if you cannot fix it, don't break it anymore. This world belongs to me. The world is more broken 28 years later. So it's frivolous. And third, fatalistic. What do you mean? Whatever will be, will be. No, what I
Exactly.
choose will be. You choose to do right, you will do right. You choose to create your own path, you will create your own path. You choose to follow the herd, you will follow the herd. So let's stop teaching them that something is destined, something is preordained. It is not. You are the master of your fate, you are the captain of your destiny. That's the character that I'm talking about. Failing which, you'll be like 90% of the world, following the herd. Go to wake up, have some coffee, have some breakfast, go to work, punch the card, do some work, have some lunch, do some work, punch the card, come home, watch some Netflix, watch some IPL, routine,
Right.
repeat. Doesn't work, right? And today, Parul, the reason we've started Mills is I've been speaking about this for the past 7, 8 years, that the world is going to change. What research shows you, whether it's World Economic Forum's research or HBR's research or research done by other think tanks at Oxford and so many places, that the world is going to move towards what is called as the gig economy. And they said 2030. I always felt it would be by 2025 or 26 because we live in a VUCA world.
But everything has got speeded up because of
Yes, the lockdown and the pandemic has made it happen in 2020. So urban clap is going to happen to all of us, right?
yeah,
So I'm a daily wage laborer any which way because then I get paid by the day. But the point is that there won't be permanent jobs. So
right,
all the careers that parents and educators are preparing children for won't be there in the future.
right.
So that's what parents need to understand, that you're actually making them redundant because there won't be permanent jobs. You'll be hired by the gig, you'll be hired by an assignment, right? And you will be rated, and if you're not completing that assignment on time, they may not even pay you. And if your ratings go down, you may not get another assignment. So you have to think them to be independent, you have to think them to be on.
Adaptive. also very, I mean, like you said, the whole key word being learning to learn. You have to be adaptive enough to realize that, okay, now it's time for me to change tracks. And I can do
Absolutely.
that very easily, have the confidence.
Absolutely. And sitting down in the lockdown, this is just around 6 months ago that we start. I said, there are huge mental health issues happening out there, right? And kids who have graduated, we spoke to a lot of them, like what you did today. We realized that they are finding themselves to be like in despair, because there are no career options out there. There are no jobs out there, and it's all a grim situation. And the message is, hey, don't worry, it's not gloom and doom. In fact, it could be a golden opportunity, because now you can actually pursue your passion and
Right.
chase that dream that you have, rather than just get stuck in a corporate job, because there are no jobs out there. Now, we designed the program for kids and young graduates and young leaders, and now we have a lot of parents who are telling us they want to attend the program, because parents have lost their jobs, Parul.
Yeah, of
Four,
course. Of
four,
course.
40
It's a
million
bad
people,
situation out there.
4 crore people have lost their jobs, and people in my age group of 50 plus and 40 plus may never get jobs again,
Right.
because this is when the corporates will on all organ, and not just will figure out ways to weed you out, because they want to kind of take in new blood, right? So it's a grim situation, but at the same time, it's not all gloom and doom, because even at 40 or 50, you can recreate and reinvent and rejuvenate yourself. And that's my big message to you all. So it's all about changing your mindset. It's about understanding that you can be independent, you can be an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurship is a learnable skill. It's not that you're a born leader or a born entrepreneur. It's a learn-able skill. We teach that in several entrepreneur forums. We have a program called ABCDE. Anybody can do entrepreneurship, because if these ordinary people in our books can become entrepreneurs without even having an education, then any of us can.
I think, in a nutshell, Jerry, I mean, you're so right when you say that at the end of it, nothing is not learnable, and we
Right.
can all do it. It has to start from us.
Absolutely.
Uh,
And it all starts, in the corporate sector, Parul, we do something called how to move from an employee mindset to an entrepreneur mindset. So
right.
entrepreneur is not just that you have to start a venture.
A
Entrepreneur is
business.
about taking charge of your life. It's about saying, I don't need anybody to tell me what to do, right? Because
I
in the
think that,
corporate sector, the big
right.
problem is the follow-up and the micromanagement. That's why you have dotted line reporting, functional reporting, organizational reporting. God knows
Sure.
how I mean, it's so killing, right? Because I mean, it completely stifles an individual, because that person is reporting to 3 people. The poor chap doesn't have time for herself, for himself, right?
And
So
that's pretty much what is happening to our children right now in the school system. So,
absolutely.
since we're
And
running out of time, Jerry, I'm going to just, wind up with a little quick recap of what we've discussed. I think over the entire session, the key points that have stayed with me are that we need to take charge as parents. We have given the entire responsibility of education to our teachers, to the schools for long enough. They have their own constrictions and restrictions, constraints, and it's there is a lot that we as parents can do. And thank you for putting down some of those points, which essentially starts by character building. I think that is the
absolutely,
key which
absolutely.
has stayed with
Yeah.
me, that that's entirely in my hands as a parent.
Absolutely, Parul, and there's clear research to show you this, that it is your character that takes you places and takes you beyond. And
Absolutely.
because parents don't know it, that they don't understand it. But let me give a simple example. Vinod Kamli is born talent, far more superior cricketer and batsman than Sachin Tendulkar. Where did it all go wrong? Character.
Character.
Tendulkar, who understood that you can never be perfect or never be the best, continuously improved, had the discipline, went on to become an all-time great.
Right.
Tendulkar is a complete waste, right? Macaulay Culkin, another great story from Home Alone, right? Millionaire at the age of 9. You've seen his talent, born talent again, natural born actor. Where
Right.
is he today? Drug addict, in and out of rehabs, right? Boris Becker, once upon a time tennis legend, bankrupt today, right? So it is your character that takes you beyond. So you build that devotion, that diligence, that industriousness, the enthusiasm, that a child wants to pursue their passion, do what they love what they do, and do it with all their effort. And the final, it's not about success. This is from coach John Wooden's learning, who created something called the success pyramid. And the two cornerstones of the success pyramid are industriousness and enthusiasm. And his messaging to his basketball players who he coached was, don't worry about winning or losing. It doesn't matter. At the end of each game, whether you win or lose, ask yourself, did you put in your best effort? I think that should be our messaging, because putting in our best effort in whatever we do is completely in our control. Succeeding is not in our control. And I think that's the
Great message to
basic
wrap
insight.
up this discussion on, and it's definitely something that we can all implement right away.
Thank you.
And
Thank you so much, Parul.
it's
And
an
thank
old
you.
age thing.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you
me over.
so
Thank
much,
you.
Terry.
Yeah.
Thanks a
Thank you.
lot.
And to all the parents, namaste. And thank you to Vishal Gupta and Mom's Press also. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us, Jerry, and thank you everyone for
Thank you.
watching.
And do give my regards to all the kids. Their insights were brilliant.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I must, of course, thank the entire team, all the
Yes.
children who gave me their insights and
Yeah.
contributed to this
A-
discussion.
And if you could share those videos with me, it would be great.
Will do. Will do.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much. Thank you, Parul. Thank you. Thank you for having me over. Thank you.